Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for being here. First, I want to give big thanks to Budget Chairman Pat Dowell and Housing Chairman Harry Osterman, who's here with us today. They were very instrumental in making sure that we were taking care of folks who have needs around housing and help guide the passage of the ordinance that allows us to be here today to make these investments in our residents. I also want to give a special thanks to and acknowledgement to Commissioner Marissa Navarro of the Department of Housing, as well as Lisa Morrison Butler of the Department of Family and Support Services. Both of these women are leading through very difficult circumstances where the needs are high and the demands on both of their departments are the greatest, and I want to thank them both for their hard work and for their leadership. I also want to acknowledge and welcome Ebony Scott, Director of the Family Independence Initiative, Donna Clark, Director of NHS Chicago, Juliana Gonzalez Cruzy from the Center on Changing Lives. Housing insecurity is a core symptom of the crushing poverty and economic hardship that has crippled Chicago's families for generations. Now, with COVID-19, more families than ever are at risk of losing their homes. If housing is to be the tool for wealth building that it must be, we have to tackle our city's racial wealth gap. And that happens by preventing the harm that occurs when you lose your home, don't know where you'll be living, and can't access critical benefits, things that are beyond the grasp of way too many Chicagoans. That's why I'm excited to announce that the City of Chicago will be expanding our Housing Assistance Grant Program with a new round of support and direct assistance to our families, infusing more than $33 million of relief for Chicago's renters and property owners, along with eviction counseling for our city's low and moderate income renters hurt by the COVID-19 crisis. Back in March, we first announced our first round of assistance, which deployed $2 million from the city's Affordable Housing Opportunity Fund to provide one-time grants to help impacted Chicagoans with rent and mortgage payments. This is the response that we got. 83,000 people applied from every neighborhood for 2,000 available grants. So we know that the demand and the need is still there. But thanks to this investment, more Chicagoans will be able to stave off foreclosure, eviction, and homelessness, and the pain and insecurity that comes with it. This is truly a special day for our city and our many families that will be hurting just a little bit less thanks to the hard work of everyone here today. To give our families another line of support, we are also introducing a new online Chicago Housing Assistance Portal, which will serve as a central entry point for all of the housing assistance programs available for our city's renters and homeowners, which everyone can now visit at chi.gov/housinghelp. That's chi.gov/housinghelp. All too often, governments which are supposed to serve the people instead put up barriers to access to basic social services like housing and rental assistance. This portal aims to do the opposite by giving Chicagoans another easy-to-use avenue of support. And for this, I want to give a special shout out to Commissioner Morrison Butler and her team for streamlining and expanding digital access to social services resources, as well as to the partnership of Housing Commissioner Navarro and the dedicated city employees at the Department of Assets, Information, and Services. And I also want to remind folks that you can always call 311 to get information, and someone there will assist you to get you to the right place to take advantage of these opportunities. Make no mistake, we still have a long way to go with COVID-19, and we still have many challenges ahead. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to COVID-19, Chicago is in a place that other cities aren't because of our cautious, collaborative, and data-driven efforts like this one. enabling us to not only stay ahead of this virus, but also serve our families, many of whom are really hurting badly in this time. From the early days of this crisis, when we were developing our food assistance programs, to standing up our support for our small businesses, to our recent efforts to provide digital access to 100,000 of our city's students and families, and to critical housing measures like the one that we're announcing today, our city is better positioned to weather this crisis and come back stronger and more resilient than ever because of the work of so many people here in city government, but truly across our city. Our collective efforts and our collective future rest on being there for each other, helping those who are struggling to keep a roof over their heads, and ensuring that our residents have an opportunity to build, to grow, and thrive, no matter their current circumstances. Thank you all once again for your partnership in that effort, and I look forward to continuing the work ahead with all of you in this mission. Thank you, and now I welcome Commissioner Navarro of Housing to the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership and commitment to the housing needs of residents all over Chicago. We are so pleased today to announce this comprehensive package of housing assistance initiatives aimed at Chicagoans impacted by the economic fallout of the coronavirus pandemic. When the pandemic began in March, the Department of Housing worked around the clock to put together the COVID-19 Housing Assistance Grants Initiative. And the person who most specifically worked around the clock is Paul Williams, who's here again, because he did it again. These grants provided to renters and homeowners helped stave off eviction for 2,000 Chicago households. However, as the mayor noted, we were certainly heavily oversubscribed. We had the need for far more than the $2 million in our own funds that we had available at the time. In fact, we actually self-funded those first grants precisely because we didn't know how long it was going to take us to get to today. We did not know how long it would take to put together what we hoped was a stream of government funds that would help us to do more. So today, thanks to the Federal CARES Act, generous contributions from philanthropy, the mayor's office, and support from city council leaders, chiefly Chairman Osterman and Chairman Dowell, the Department of Housing is pleased to announce our second round of grants totaling $25 million. This is more than 10 times our initial investment. Together with investments from the Department of Family and Support Services, the City of Chicago is dedicating nearly $34 million to eviction and foreclosure prevention. So there's a bit more detail on our portion of that. The Department of Housing will contribute $20 million in rental assistance through our COVID-19 housing assistance grants, together with our partner, the Family Independence Initiative. You'll hear more from them in a moment. Chicago Community Trust in the United Ways of Chicago's Response Fund is contributing an additional $1 million in private funds to this rental assistance fund. So importantly, two things. With this fund, we will be able to serve Chicago residents regardless of immigration status. And those who applied to the first round of funding and were not selected will be automatically transferred to this next round. So there's no need to reapply. An additional $3.5 million is dedicated to Chicago homeowners in a mortgage assistance program that will be operated by Neighborhood Housing Services of Chicago, one of our department's longest standing delegate agencies, and you'll hear more from them as well. And finally, the Department of Housing is contributing $500,000 for pro bono attorneys for COVID-impacted Chicagoans at immediate risk of eviction through the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing. One more note of thanks is due to the Polk Brothers Foundation, which has provided additional support for both the rental assistance and eviction counsel programs. In total, we anticipate that our funds will assist a minimum of 10,000 households to stay in the places that they call home. In order to direct Chicagoans to the housing assistance that best fits their needs, DOH has worked with Commissioner Morrison Butler's team at DFSS and our IT teams to create the Chicago Housing Assistance Portal. And we have coordinated with the Illinois Housing Development Authority, the statewide entity managing statewide funds, to route applicants not eligible for our programs to their statewide program. So all Chicagoans who've been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic are invited to visit the intake form. You heard the URL from the mayor, chi.gov/housinghelp. Thank you, and I will turn it over to Commissioner Morrison Butler for more.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Morrison Butler, and it is my honor and privilege to lead the team at the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services. I'm really excited to be here today to announce the expanded resources that are available through the DFSS Rental Assistance Program, and to talk about the changes that we have put in place to make that program more accessible and easier for people to navigate. So many residents are now faced with unprecedented hardship due to COVID-19, and so it is more important than ever that we meet people where they are and that we make help just a click away. And that is why throughout this process, ensuring easier access for residents in need has been our #1 priority. The Rental Assistance Program, commonly referred to as RAP, is unique in that it is directly aimed at preventing homelessness by helping families stay in their existing rental units. Eligible applicants must be facing eviction and may receive up to 6 months of rental support, which includes the payment of rent or rent arrears. More than $8 million of CARES funding has been dedicated to RAP, enabling us to help more residents who are facing eviction because of a recent loss of income due to COVID-19. The Chicago Housing Assistance Portal is an online gateway to connect residents through the RAP application and to connect them to other resources available to help them stay in their homes. Starting today, through August 10th, residents can use the portal for help determining which housing resources best meet their current needs. The Chicago Housing Assistance Portal guides each applicant through the eligibility process, educates them on the ins and outs of each program, and includes the program benefits and more. It's important to note that there are multiple departments that are behind this. You just heard from my colleague, Commissioner Navarro, so you know that the Department of Housing is in this together with us. Each of us have multiple funding streams that we've cobbled together in order to put this effort before you. Each of those funding streams has different requirements and restrictions, and all of that can really be intimidating to the average Chicagoan. So the portal is designed to make this easier. Residents don't have to be the expert in either the department or the funding stream. All they need to do is go to chi.gov/housinghelp and start a process that will help connect them to the right program for them. With the portal being available online, more residents can access housing assistance resources at their own convenience and from the safety of their own homes. Creating such a robust online resource was truly a team effort. I also want to thank Mayor Lightfoot for your continued dedication to homeless prevention and to providing housing solutions for Chicagoans in need of shelter and those at risk of losing their homes. It's truly been an honor to work with the Department of Housing, as well as the city's Assets, Information, and Services Department, and the community partners standing with us today, who have worked diligently on the Chicago Housing Assistance Portal and conducted outreach at the community level so that residents in neighborhoods across the city of Chicago are aware of the sustainability resources that are now more widely available. I do have to give a special shout out to my team at DFSS, led by Cindy Rivera, who over the past 16 weeks have worked so hard to revamp our process so that it is easier for Chicagoans to navigate. They understood the positive impact that a tool like the Chicago Housing Assistance Portal could have on expanding housing resources and accessibility to all Chicagoans. I applaud them on their diligence and dedication in making the Chicago Housing Assistance Portal a reality. As we have learned throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, teamwork establishing new partnerships and building on existing ones can really make an important difference. The Department of Family and Support Services remains committed to our city's most vulnerable residents and to connecting them to resources that support their well-being. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Ebony Scott of the Family Independence Initiative.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Ebony Scott, and I lead the work of the Family Independence Initiative here in Chicago. I had the honor of working with teams from the Mayor's Office on the development of the Rental Assistance Fund, powered by FII's technology platform, Up Together, and I'd like to thank them for their partnership. The work I do at FII is deeply personal to me because I am a proud Chicago girl. I was born and raised here. I still call Lawndale K-Town. I think Italian beef is the perfect sandwich, and I know that the best Italian ice in this city is really found at G&N on North Avenue, and not at those trendy hot spots that get all the hype. As a kid, I spent my summers on the West Side catching lightning bugs with my cousins and pestering my grandfather for 50 cents every few days so I could restock my penny candy stash. I grew up witnessing people like my grandparents work backbreaking jobs at steel mills and in the housekeeping departments of hospitals. They'd work all day and then come home to raise their children and grandchildren in the homes they worked hard to purchase or rent. Families like mine pooled together their resources to become small landlords or business owners who offered affordable housing, convenient and reliable access to high-quality goods and services, and created jobs for their friends, neighbors, and kinfolk arriving from the Black Belt. When things got tight, they leaned on each other, providing flexible cash and sharing other resources at every turn. At FII, we believe social capital systems like these were a very large part of what made this entire city strong. Flexible, customized solutions to your family's challenges in a strong community created the ability for families like mine to secure quality, affordable housing and subsequently begin to thrive. Decades ago, folks on the West Side shouted proudly that the West Side is the best side because the West Side we knew once had manicured lawns and tree-lined streets. It was full of small landlords and longtime renters who formed block clubs and created a strong culture on the block that made you reconsider taking that shortcut through Mr. Cook's grass if you knew what was good for you. The Chicago my grandparents raised their children in saw the establishment of strong, working, and middle-income communities on the West and South Side, and our families thrived. The ability to secure stable housing and exchange social capital within the neighborhood undergirded our Black and brown communities and led to neighborhoods birthing some of Chicago's most prolific leaders, artists, vibrant small businesses, churches, activists, and strong neighborhood schools. So what happened? For starters, decades of disinvestment, the expansion of deficit-based and paternalistic approaches, racist practices like redlining, and bad public housing policy. These issues, plus systemic racism, created conditions that allowed poverty to fester, widened the racial wealth gap, and guaranteed our neighborhoods would be ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic and its economic fallout. In March, the mayor asked community leaders to come together to create solutions to not only provide immediate relief in a moment of disaster, but also lay the foundation to repair the decades of harm done by racism and eliminate poverty in Chicago in the future. FII took that call to action seriously. Poverty, by definition, is the persistent absence of cash. Our solution is simple: get cash to families in need. Through Direct Cash Housing Assistance Fund, residents will gain access to much-needed cash to maintain stable housing. Chicago cannot afford a massive wave of evictions and the further destabilization of our neighborhoods. Since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, FII's Up Together platform has facilitated nearly 100,000 emergency cash transfers in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. We've worked tirelessly to raise over $100 million to help our neighbors from coast to coast ensure their families' well-being. It is a deep honor to expand that work right here in my hometown that I fight for every day. Residents in need of assistance are encouraged to use the new Chicago Housing Assistance Portal to begin their application. We urge those in the philanthropic and business community who have stepped up to express their commitments to racial justice and equity to contribute to growing this fund and other direct cash funds. To be committed to equity is to ensure that those most marginalized and under-resourced receive a response and investment that is greater than the harm being repaired. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, Commissioner Navarro, and my favorite commissioner, Commissioner Butler. Thank you again for your hard work. I'd like to now introduce Donna Clark with Neighborhood Housing Services Chicago, who will tell you about how NHS will expand upon their incredible work with mortgage holders. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, Commissioner Morrison Butler, and the Department of Family and Support Services, and Commissioner Navarro, and our other colleagues at the Department of Housing for allowing Neighborhood Housing Services to administer the Mortgage Assistance Program for the City of Chicago. Our mission at NHS is to create opportunities for people to live in affordable homes, improve their lives, and strengthen their neighborhoods. But due to this pandemic, our immediate focus is on helping people navigate this financially difficult time and helping them stay in their homes. The purpose of this mortgage assistance program is to help the City of Chicago homeowners, those households that have experienced financial hardships due to the COVID-19 crisis. If your mortgage was current prior to the outbreak of the pandemic, but now is in arrears, you may be eligible to receive assistance through this program. So without further ado, let me give you some highlights of this program. This program will help an estimated 800 to 900 people, and it will be available on a first-come, first-served basis to the homeowners that live in the City of Chicago limits. The maximum grant assistance will be $3,300. The level of assistance will be determined based on your need to bring your mortgage current. There are program income limitations. Your household income cannot exceed 120% of the area median income. So for example, if you have a household of 4 people, your income cannot be higher than $109,200. There'll be a chart available for your reference on the NHS website to determine where your income lies. These grants will not need to be repaid. Homeowners that live in single-family homes up to 4-unit properties qualify for assistance. If you have a Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, or FHA loan, that will not be eligible for this program. NHS will start accepting applications Monday, August 3rd at noon. Again, this program is on a first-come, first-served basis. It will be open until the end of the year, December 31st, or until all available grants are exhausted. Given the need, obviously, please apply as soon as possible. Please note, only applications that are complete that have with the required documents necessary to demonstrate your eligibility will be processed. Please visit the NHS website at nhschicago.org/emergency assistance, or you can call our toll-free number at 800-831-7949 for more detailed information about the Mortgage Assistance Program, or inquire about additional resources or financial counseling services that we offer on a regular basis. Next, I would like to introduce to you Juliana Gonzalez-Cruci, the Executive Director for the Center for Changing Lives.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Juliana Gonzalez-Cruci, and I am the Executive Director of the Center for Changing Lives. The Center for Changing Lives is a financial opportunity center located in West Logan Square, adjacent to the Humboldt Park community area of Chicago. We provide employment and career coaching, one-on-one financial coaching, and education on financial tools that help build credit, savings, and assets. We also connect families to mainstream benefits such as rent subsidies to help families afford housing. The foundation of our programming is that we provide these services in an integrated way rather than standalone services with a long-term commitment to helping families reach their goals. We do this in a manner that is distinct to our model by embracing individuals and families wherever they are and tailor the support to meet their unique needs. We believe everyone is creative, resourceful, and whole, experts in their own lives, with hopes and dreams that can be realized with coaching support. Our goal is to help increase financial stability for families. Increased financial stability is a priority for the people we serve, and our innovative approach helps prepare individuals for the workplace and beyond. The COVID-19 pandemic, its disproportional positivity and death rate in Black and Latinx communities, and its economic fallout is fundamentally unsettling for all of us, calling into question how we live, who we see, and what we value. At the same time, the digital divide has amplified the racial inequities, as many of the very people we serve are increasingly dependent on reliable internet access in order to access public services, including public health information, telemedicine, unemployment resources, education, and more. At the Center for Changing Lives, since our inception, we work towards closing those inequities and have been forging pathways to increase access and economic opportunity. With the unemployment rate in our city hovering at 16% and the existing moratoriums that are bound to end, it is critical now more than ever to support the thousands of Chicagoans who look for stability, safety, and housing. Our mayor's announcement of increased funding for the Emergency Rental Assistance Program is encouraging news for families at a moment of unprecedented spikes in unemployment and housing affordability concerns. These funds will help families who have been impacted by COVID-19 pay rent and will bring some relief to renters and landlords alike. The Center for Changing Lives is a proud partner in this program and one of the organizations that will be processing rental assistance applications. Lastly, I would like to say, no matter what your priorities are, it is clear and true for all of us. We can't go back to the way things were, and the diversity of our community is our strength. Collectively, we can co-create a future that doesn't just recover, but establishes a society so that every person can thrive. And with that, I'd like to invite Alderman Perry Osterman.
Good afternoon. I want to commend Mayor Lightfoot and her administration on dealing with the COVID crisis. Her leadership has helped keep Chicagoans safe as we deal with this pandemic. I want to commend Commissioner Morrison Butler and Commissioner Marisa Navarro, who've worked in partnership to provide stable housing for Chicagoans during this crisis. What you see today is partnership with government, with nonprofits across the city of Chicago to provide needed critical resources for families to stay in their homes during the middle of a pandemic. 10,000 families will be able to be helped by the grants provided by the Department of Housing and DFFS today, with additional funds coming from the state and hopefully, finally, the federal government. We're going to be able to provide stable housing for families who need it most during this pandemic. This has an impact on families, but it also has an impact on communities. And the members of the City Council, I want to commend Chairman Pat Dowell, the Budget Committee, worked in partnership with the administration to make sure that we put as much money as possible towards these grants. It's critical for families and communities, and as Ms. Scott talked about how it stabilizes families and how we want to make sure that we're able to keep families in their homes safely, but also look to the future where we're working to add additional housing on the south and west side of Chicago that needs it the most. So the members of the City Council are here as partners. We look forward to working to make sure that people can take advantage of these grants. As we look to a difficult budget process ahead, we're going to make sure that we're continuing to focus on the renters and the homeowners to make sure that they can stay in their homes and stay in Chicago. Glad to be here today and look forward to the important work ahead. And again, I want to commend Mayor Lightfoot on her leadership. And questions for the mayor?
Thanks, Harry.
Teed it up for you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Just so I can get a clarification on the numbers, I heard.
And so everybody knows, just identify yourself.
Oh, yes, it's Tanya Francisco from WGN-TV. I'm the pool reporter, so I'll be asking questions of a number of people, but I just want to understand the numbers about the people that are expected to help. I heard 10,000 here, and then I heard 300 here. Can we get a clarification on how many numbers?
Which one of you want to take that?
10,000 overall.
10,000 overall.
So that's the number to really keep on your radar screen.
Why don't you come in?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, so it's 10,000 overall. And what we're trying to do is to kind of simplify the message. Behind the scenes, it does break down. So a lot of those, the biggest pot of money is coming from housing. And so there's a certain number that they'll be able to help with their funds, a certain number that we'll be able to help. The examples that you heard from our nonprofit friends were examples of what will flow through them.
Sure.
So the 10,000 is the big number.
The big number.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
great. Thank you. So staying with COVID-19, I just had a question. There were a group of physicians that sent a national letter asking that the entire country just shut down so that we can reset and start all over. Your thoughts and feelings on that, considering what we've gone through here in Chicago as far as COVID restrictions?
Look, I certainly understand the sentiment. And while I think Chicago, we are doing well because we were extremely prudent when we started to reopen up. We didn't go as large with capacity, for example, as other areas across the country. And so what we're seeing is cities and towns, particularly across the South through the Southwest and on to California, really having significant struggles now because many of those communities took a very different approach to the one that Chicago took. We're also seeing an increase in states around us. Wisconsin, for example, is going to go on our quarantine list later this week. And even in the suburban Cook area, we have some concerns about what we're seeing. So I certainly understand the sentiment. My hope, however, is that we will all work in concert to really go back to what got us to a position of safety. Social distancing, wearing face coverings in public, making sure that you're exercising hand hygiene. Those are critically important. As I've said probably every day since early March, COVID-19 is very much real. It is dangerous. It is part of our present, and it's going to be part of our future. So we need to make sure that we're doing the steps now that are necessary to start to slow again the spread of this virus.
You talked about Wisconsin being added later this week. What about Indiana? I know they just started a mask
We're
requirement.
watching all of our neighbors very, very carefully, and we're going to be very prudent. We set out a set of standards. Indiana doesn't quite rise to that level, which is a good thing for the residents of the Hoosier State, but we're watching all of our neighbors very carefully.
Has anyone actually been fined yet because of these quarantine measures?
We have not seen any fines yet, and really what we're trying to do is raise people's consciousness to really try to educate them into compliance. We're doing that by the weekly announcements. We're doing it with our travelers at our airports and our train stations. Our hope is that people understand it, and I know that people do because I get questions all the time. Hey, if I go here, what's the consequences? If I do this, what's going to happen? But this has really got to be about not just fining people into compliance. It's about educating people to understand the risks factors that are out there and the risks that they're taking for their own health, but the health of every single other person that they come into contact with.
All right, a number of questions about the Columbus statues from Marianne Ahern and Craig Wall. A lot of people are equating the statues being taken down in the middle of the night to the mixed field decision by Mayor Daley. Why did you do it in the middle of the night?
I wanted to make sure that we did it as quickly as possible, and we received some information that day, excuse me, that raised some very serious public safety concerns, and I didn't want to wait.
Some aldermen are saying that you're rewarding the rioters and disagree with it.
No, but totally disagree with that. This was about public safety. Anyone who saw the videotapes from a previous Friday night, which saw a peaceful protest hijacked by vigilantes who came there to hurt the police, but also other people got hurt in the ensuing chaos. This is about public safety, pure and simple.
Any stakeholders that you were to share with us that you consulted about this?
I consulted a lot of people along the way, and obviously this is Chicago. People aren't shy about offering up their own opinions. I don't do anything in a vacuum. I always make sure that we're reaching out proactively to talk to a number of different folks. And I think people understand, given what happened and what was threatened, that this is about public safety.
You say it's temporary, but a lot of people believe that statues will not go back up.
Well, I said it's temporary.
What about Columbus Drive? Do you think that that needs to be renamed?
Well, look, what we're going to be announcing here shortly is a process by which we take stock of murals and monuments and other memorials to our past, but also that we talk about the past that hasn't been highlighted or lifted up. There's a lot of richness to our history as Chicagoans, as a city, that doesn't appear in any way, shape, or form of memorialization. Let's start with the fact that we don't do enough to talk about indigenous peoples here in Chicago and that long history. Let's talk about the fact that there's very little that memorializes and uplifts the challenges, but also the triumphs of people of color, Black, Latinx, Asian. We see very little commemorating really the contributions of women in our city. So this is a conversation that's long overdue, and we will have it. Not piecemeal, but we will do it in a way that is thoughtful. We're reaching out to historians, to art historians, to artists, and other stakeholders that come together in a very specific mission, not just to look backward, but to look forward as well.
All right. Last question on this. There are some protest groups that still remain skeptical of police being appropriately respectful at demonstrations. And despite the new critical incidents response team unit that will be especially assigned to handle those demonstrations, how will that group of officers be any different?
Well, look, I think you got to give them some credit, right? Officers don't live in a vacuum. They're our neighbors. They're our residents of the city. They care about the city. And most of them, I believe, the overwhelming majority, care about constitutional policing. And I understand the skepticism, and I get it. But the proof is going to be in the pudding, as they say. Our officers and our superintendent and the executive team are committed to making sure that we safeguard protesters' First Amendment rights. And I think a number of safeguards have been put into place. Will it be perfect? Will it be incident-free? Probably not, because that's human nature. But we're certainly going to strive to do everything that we can to make sure that we keep people that are out there in the street in peaceful protest safe, and that we also make sure that our officers are doing the right thing. But they also have a right to return to their families without injury.
Can you tell us what happened on Thursday that led you to believe that something bad was going to happen?
We got some intelligence that gave us great concern.
That's all?
That's it.
Okay. Let's move on. You received a letter from state lawmakers asking that you and Sheriff Dart cease cooperation with the federal agents sent here by President Trump. Your thoughts?
I have not seen that letter,
see it?
so I can't really comment on something that I haven't seen.
Oh, okay. Well, they say they don't trust the president. Let's see. How about how many federal agents are being sent here in total, and do you know when they will be here, when they will arrive?
My understanding is that in total there'll be about 150. And again, I want to be very clear because there's still, despite the communications from myself, from the U.S. Attorney and others, there's a lot of confusion about this. These are not troops, right? Troops are people that come from the military. That's not what's coming to Chicago, and I've drawn a very firm line against that. These are also, as we understand it, not what we've seen on the streets of Portland, riot-clad federal officers who are playing police in the streets. That's not what's coming to Chicago. And certainly, if there was anything that happened like that, we would be making sure that we did everything possible to stop that in its tracks. What we do understand, however, is that we're getting additional federal agents like the FBI, like DEA, like ATF. These agents have had offices in the city of Chicago probably 50 plus years or longer. They are always actively engaged on a range of different issues implicating federal crimes and jurisdiction, including gangs, drugs, and violence. So adding to existing infrastructure that's already been in place, that the city has, in particular our police department has a long history of working with to help us in our crime fight, those are the additional resources that I understand are coming to Chicago. I don't have a specific date. I think some came over the course of the week and the weekend, and I believe that the rest of them will be here shortly.
Last two questions.
Okay, I just want to ask, can you, once you get a look at this letter, because it's coming from Lightfoot, Senator Lightfoot, Maddie Hunter, Jacqueline Collins, some pretty prominent members in there. Can you get a comment? Because they're asking that you do not allow DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshal Service, or Homeland Security to work with them and to cease all information sharing and database. So they're asking for some pretty big asks. So if we can get a comment about that, I would appreciate that. Let me move down here. Where do contract negotiations with the FOP stand, and what do your recent interactions with John Catanzaro mean for Chicago in those negotiations?
So those negotiations are ongoing at the request of the new FOP leadership. We delayed. It was supposed to only be 30 days. It ended up being a lot longer than that. So those negotiations are really in the earliest of stages. And what I expect my negotiating team to do is to bring the values that we took to the supervisors' contracts around accountability, around transparency, around eliminating provisions in that contract that are in opposition to the reform that is necessary to be able to move forward. Those are the marching orders, if you will, that my team well understands. We put down the marker on some of those issues, and those negotiations are ongoing.
Last question.
Let me give one to a smaller news agency. A reporter with The Trace in Chicago is a nonprofit newsroom that covers gun-related issues. Mayor Lightfoot, this question is in regard to the recent story about how suicides in Cook County among Black residents halfway through this year have surpassed the total for all of 2019, putting 2020 on pace to be the worst year in a decade. Most of these deaths happened in Chicago. What immediate plans does your administration have for addressing this disparity?
Well, we're aware of those statistics, which are quite grim, particularly as they affect Black Chicago. We've particularly seen a spike in overdoses in African American men, older men, and so our Department of Public Health has a very strong network of supports, as does the Department of Family and Support Services. So we are continuing to make sure that we're doing the outreach. That's why we introduced our mental health framework that is up and running with a number of different community partners so that we can reach out to folks. But the reality is this is a very difficult time in our city. There are many, many people before COVID, but certainly since, that are suffering from trauma. One of the recommendations of our recent recovery task force is to make Chicago one of the most trauma-informed cities in the country, and we embrace that recommendation and that challenge because we know that that's important to the future of our city, particularly our residents that are really struggling and in need. So we will continue to make sure that we direct resources, working in partnership with local partners to address this issue.
I just have
Thank
one
you,
last question, if I can, just one last question.
Last
It's
question.
from Amy Jacobson from WIND Radio. We received a number of calls from Chicagoans who claim you are moving out of your Logan Square home to the Sauganash neighborhood. Is that true?
Not true. I've said that. Why on earth, think about it rationally, why on earth in the middle of everything that's going on would I uproot my family and move? That's a false story. We've said it repeatedly. I'm not moving. As I said to my wife, my next home is my retirement home. I'm not moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.